Welcome to the Synergy Podcast, the space where we redefine how we move, heal, and experience our bodies. My name is Arianna Montanari, a yoga teacher, soap maker, and beekeeper, and really advocate for a pain-free life driven by pleasure. Here, we break free from the unspoken rules that tell us how we should look, how we should move and feel. And through intuitive movement, self-care, and deeper connection with nature, we explore what it truly means to live without tension, pain, or limitations. So whether you're a yogi, a seeker, or simply curious about stepping into a more liberated way of living, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. And we're live. Welcome to the Synergy Podcast today with Emily. Emily is an amazing sacred guardian of the bees, and I discovered her through Instagram and fell in love with her energy and the way she approaches bees. I have been trying to book this chat with her for maybe 6 months, but she was in Australia, and so time difference would make it a little bit difficult to schedule an appointment, but now she's closer to where I am time zone wise, and stars aligned, and we're here today. Welcome, Emily. All right. So just connect with the current version of yourself in the making and share with us whatever is alive for you right now, today, since we are always beings in transformation and on a journey.
So right now I'm in Morocco, which is pretty special because it's the place where my daughter comes from. She's half Moroccan. Her seed came from here. And they're amazing lands, and I feel deeply connected to it. My daughter's part Berber, and this goes back to ancient Egyptian days. And it's the Egyptian bee, the hieroglyph. That's my logo for Embody Bee. It's here on my chest. Yeah, and it's really sweet because I drew this just after she was birthed, and I didn't have money for a graphic designer, and it was like the simplest sacred bee symbol I could make, but it's also a connection to her. And we're back here in these lands, and it's amazing because the Arabic people, Islam has such a deep connection to the honeybee. It's actually written in the Quran how sacred honey is. So there's
Really?
such reverence for the bee in these lands. The honey price is higher over here, even though the honey is a lot more less pure. Like they mix it with sugar syrup, and it's not as high quality honey, but the honey, they just really respect and give reverence to the bee. And this is why the honey price is so high here. Yeah, it's amazing to be in these lands right now. Morocco is also home to the largest collective apiary that's from the 16th century. So it's super ancient, and the Berber people still use it to this day. When I came here 2 years ago,
Tell me more about it.
Yeah, I did I went and visited it, and I did a reel about it as well. And it's spectacular, kind of built into the side of a mountain where there's lots of herbs around, and it's seasonal that the pollination happens there. So the traditional hives here are actually woven, and they've got clay around them. And so they build in kind of like the cylinder shape, and then they're migratory beekeepers, and they come from different villages. Hundreds of different Berber families, and they've kept this in the generation, for hundreds of years. And they'll travel by donkey or by foot and come together for this massive pollination event for 3 months of the year. So yeah, it's a really beautiful ancient site, and this is still happening here, even with the industrialization of the hive and a lot of people following kind of Western methods now. This still exists, which is amazing. Thanks, sweetie. That's where we are at the moment, and it's big times because we're also coming back to Australia very soon, and I run a very amazing business that I have closed, and I will be restarting when I come back, which is all around the bees, and I work with bees in many different forms and ways, and that's definitely evolving.
This is so incredibly interesting to just see beekeeping cultures and practices all over the world, and especially in countries like where you are now in Morocco. The practice is so ancient that you still have this connection. Now, I live in Sweden, and beekeeping is relatively new recent. So there is no such a thing. It's maybe we can date, say, 200 years back, I guess, more or less. You mentioned donkeys, and I remember going to Greece to the island of Rhodes. And then they also have a very ancient beekeeping practice. And they have a bee museum. So, of course, I had to go and visit it. And like you mentioned, they had all these clay hives where the bees then would build their combs. And the donkeys had the bee suits. And I thought that was just like
Oh my
the
gosh, that's the cutest thing.
cutest. I know. I was like, oh my God, a donkey with a bee suit.
I've been traveling now for 3 months as well. So we've also been in Slovenia and we were in Greece as well on the island of Crete that has a very ancient history with the bees. So yeah, it's been really interesting being able to travel and see some places that I've wanted to see for a very long time that are doing really amazing things. And it's kind of like with all of this progress, you know,
Yeah.
um, we've realized, how much there is just in like the simple ways that, of the beginnings of everything and how, really it's the control of the feminine that I really feel is what is wrong with the bees when you look at nature kind of in more of an energetic way. And, for so many, thousands of years when you go back to ancient Egyptian, like having more of a mutually beneficial relationship with the bees is, I think, key to actually having something sustainable into the future because the way that the industrial system works with the bees is just inevitable that it's going to collapse. And you see that
Yeah.
through things like disease, but it's actually just like,
Mm.
it's so much deeper than what you may see on the surface.
What is, can you talk deeper into this, how do you say, imbalance between the masculine way and the feminine way of beekeeping and the bees, really? Because the
Yeah.
bees are, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And I think women make amazing bee tenders, and I definitely don't want to like demonize men or their way because there's like some amazing male bee tenders out there, but the ones that are doing it really respectfully and well are the ones that understand that the hive is a feminine organism and are using it with love and respect and mindfulness. Yeah, the hive is a feminine organism. So all of the bees you see out pollinating a female. The male is only made to love. He doesn't have a stinger. He doesn't pollinate. He has other roles. During winter, she kicks the males out and she can, so, as a being, we have masculine and feminine within us, but through winter, she's 100% feminine. So this is, yeah, the hive body is feminine. And for the last couple of 100 years, since they worked out how to do removable frames and be able to extract honey in a way, I really see the hive as whole. So the outside of the hive is the skin, the honey is the blood, and the bees are the cells within the body working as a collective consciousness. So when you see it in this way, for a male to come in and control and to be literally, it's just common practice. I mean, this is what beekeeping is taught and what everyone does pretty much is they go into the womb and they do pretty much a forced early C-section. Like they are taking parts of the womb apart, killing the queen, re-queening to make it more productive. All of these things that have just been happening only in the last 100 years, you can also just see, and, and it's in line with how we eat and our food network as well, because it relies on pollination from honeybees. And this is actually where most commercial beekeepers make their income from shipping bees these big distances across doing all of this. But it's just so out of balance because of the way that we're exploiting the feminine, and she can't take it, and it comes back with not being allowed much time to adapt to a disease. I'm not worried about bees at all because I know, the whole save the bees thing. I know bees in the wild are going to be fine and they're there and they're kind of, yeah, in like kind of the spiritual world, they're there just as a consciousness on the earth and like doing so much. But it's really the canary in the coal mine, like showing us that what we're doing is not sustainable because bees in the commercial world are just dying. And especially now in Australia that Varroa is here, it's really interesting to watch it play out when we've already seen it happen in the rest of the world. And now 20 years on with this bad bee disease being in America, it's like they have to use stronger and stronger chemicals. And now like the chemical treatments aren't even working and they're losing really big numbers. So it's like with all of this, the whole collapse, but it's just mirrored in the way it's really simple. If you look at it energetically and how we treat nature and how we treat the feminine, because it's also mirrors our society. A lot of, they used to say that beekeepers had the longest life expectancy because, they're breathing in the hive air, they're getting all the medicines. That's not the case anymore because, most beekeepers now are actually overweight, drive trucks, use heavy equipment. They're not healthy at all, and it's a mirror to our society in the way that we, treating the bees.
That's such a different perspective because there are many beekeepers or, say, newspaper headlines saying that it's the wild bees, the solitary bees who are more endangered, and Apis mellifera, so the honeybees, they'll be fine because they always have a beekeeper tending them, right? But you are shifting this perspective a little bit and you're saying, well, actually, beekeeping is becoming something that is not sustainable. And there is this paradox that is actually the honeybees are worse off than the solitary bees.
Absolutely, and I'm, like, next level with my beekeeping style, natural beekeeping. I had quite a large apiary in Australia before I went traveling, and Varroa just got introduced, this bad bee disease, and I tried different things. I left some totally untreated. I did different natural treatments on a number of hives, and no matter what I did, even though I have beautiful natural alternative hive designs, every single hive died. All of my bees died before I left Australia. What's interesting is that there's still bees pollinating the flowers. So the bees in the wild haven't died. So, yeah, the wild bees are the survivor bees, and then they will swarm, and they're the ones that are adapted and adjusted and surviving against Varroa. And they are the ones, swarming, it's like a natural birth. That's how I'm going to recreate my apiary because I'm thinking long term, not short term. I knew this would happen. I was going to allow bees to die and survive and then be patient and long term build up genetics that are more resistant rather than coming in and trying to control. But a lot of people just can't do this because they rely on honey for their income. So it's a massive choice a lot of beekeepers are having to make right now in Australia with all of that. But yeah, definitely. Bees don't need us. We need them. They are totally fine in the wild. And I think it's quite, arrogant for us to come in and think that humans know what's best. I'm always learning from the bees. They're my teacher.
Exactly.
They're keeping me. Yeah.
They are human keepers.
Yeah, well, they're sustaining life on Earth
They
through
are.
making love with flowers all day. Like, it's the most beautiful, graceful
It
thing
is.
you could be doing. So there's so many things I learned from them. They are literally, they're my gurus.
I actually totally feel you because since I started with beekeeping, that's a sensation. That's my experience. And now they're teaching me, I can have like, okay, today I'm gonna, do this. And then, I open up the hive and they have definitely other plans. And I'm like, all right, girls, how can I support you here? And I just also wanted to add to the humans thinking that they know best, right? And I think that we see such a small fraction of the whole picture, right? Like with beekeeping, we think we are selecting the best genes, but we don't know that. Like the bees know. And so that natural selection that you are allowing to happen is actually what on the long term will work out best. And I've seen, say, more like big scale beekeeping. And there are some practices I can't, like take a queen and just throw her out. I'm like, no. It
That's
just
just like common practice. Like, you're crazy if you don't. But what I find really interesting, because it's like when you get the artificially inseminated queens, that's just like sperm from one particular, one drone. But when she goes out for her mating flight, she'll mate with 50 to 100 drones. And then she can like select within herself, depending on the environment and what's happening. She can choose the sperm on the day, the genetics that she wants. Like, yeah. Genetic diversity is great.
It's so incredible. Bees are just this wonderful beings. Every time that I get visits into my hives, this is something that I really want to share with the visitors. Like bees are such complex insects, and they're just so fascinating if you just take the time to actually stop for a little bit and learn about them and observe them
Mm,
and learn their ways. And there is a lot that we can learn from them. I think a lot that we
yeah.
can kind of.
Absolutely, because, like, don't believe everything you hear or you read either, because most of the studies that have been done on bees are bees kept in hives. So it's kind of like someone studying an animal in the zoo,
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
telling people how it behaves and,
Mm,
and it's in captivity. It's like not much has actually been done on bees in the wild. And I feel like there's so much to learn through observation because, yeah, the bees themselves, they're
mm,
changing as well. And it's a
mm.
relationship, what might be right for one person might be totally different for another person. I'm also totally, used to teach like bee guardianship. And I'm
Yeah,
totally letting go
yeah.
of like, this is the way, you need to keep bees and what's right and wrong because it's different for everybody. Hive styles are different for different, climates and regions and like what your intention is. And people can have different relationships with the bees and it's okay. Like I'm actually not totally against, commercial beekeepers or anything either. Because I feel like that's the separation as well. And bees are all about us coming together and being more interconnected and learning from one another. So I don't want it to be like them and me. And this is all like more recent stuff as well, but it's just like it's so big, the beekeeping, and there's so much to learn. And I feel like the more that we create relationship with the bees and keepers of all
Mm,
kinds, the more that we can like come together as a hive and actually look out for the bees and the feminine and the earth and be able to hear each other better as well.
mm.
Pedestaling.
Totally, totally. Could you tell me a little bit more about what Olive tried with breathing the air from the hive? Would you like to
Ah,
speak a
yeah.
little bit into that and a little bit into bee medicine and all the beautiful
Yeah.
things that
Yeah,
you created?
absolutely. So, yeah, I'm really big into apitherapy, which is a modality of healing using not just all the products of the hive, but the elements. So, you've got nest scent, pheromones, dance, vibration. You've got all of the elements of the hive. You've got the sound. Like you can go so deep into the hive with the other elements, and it's beautiful. And one of the, oh, can you sit off me for a sec? We were just in Slovenia, which is kind of like they have a really big history with apitherapy and they're doing really
Oh.
interesting things. And there's people around the world doing really interesting things, but no one's kind of put all together into one modality. So I kind of feel like
Hmm.
that's a bit of my life's purpose.
Interesting.
And years ago, like over 3 years ago, I had a beehive bed made in my home, and I had one of these masks from Slovenia. And it's a bit of a process to how you use it. And this was also like COVID times. So I got this mask, and then I was like, I don't even really like want to be using this plastic thing from the hive. And I was researching. I bought it, and then I was researching how they actually practice it. And you're also
Mm.
taking the hive's air when you're doing it. So pretty much you have like a ventilator that's connected to the hive and you can turn it on. So you're slowly breathing in the air of the hive, but your air is not going back into the hive. It's filtered out.
Oh, all right.
And this is like totally medically accredited and everything in Slovenia. They have like little huts outside hospitals where they're using it for people with asthma and bronchitis. They have like a whole treatment regime about it where people are totally healing themselves from hive air. Like it's amazing.
Oh.
And we went and visited a place where Olive, she tried it. So I never did it much on my hive because I just didn't like to take the air. And you can only do that 2 times a day to the hive because it still is energy and work for they and create. It's very delicate. Like even when you're tending the bees and you're like opening up, I only check hives like a couple times a year because every time
Mm.
you're like opening up the lid, you like breathing in, but also like their hive air is escaping. And that's like a
Mm.
very controlled, special environment for
Mm.
them. So sometimes if you're like over checking your bees, you're actually, you're not doing a good thing for them. They
Mm.
need their environment.
Yeah.
But I've seen other ways that you can breathe the hive air that I like better without like kind of taking it from them. There's like these little bee huts. And this same guy in Slovenia had created the most amazing thing where it was like a beehive underneath. And then he left just like free space in a box above it that on the sides was honeycomb, and the bees could walk up and freely create in this box. So then you could lie on this table and put your head inside, like just a living hive pretty much, with like the hive under, and they're building kind of like around your head.
Wow. Oh
And
my
the
God.
sound and the smell, like it was probably like 50 times stronger than even with the mask breathing the hive air, and such a simple design. And it was just like the frequency, and it was amazing. Like I spent, a couple minutes in there just to try it when I first went in. And I was high. It can take you into, especially if you're doing like breath work with hive air or something, it can take you into like extremely heightened states. And this would even happen not intentionally breathing hive air, but like catching swarms and smelling the queen's pheromone. I think this is why people actually literally get addicted to bees. It's a thing. Like, watch out when you start getting into it, because you get heightened from just being in their presence alone, but also all of these ethereal smells from the hive. It's beyond, just good for your lungs. So interesting, because the sterilization rate inside the hive, it's the cleanest environment on earth. It's the same as like a hospital surgery room, but without any chemical anything. Like, it's natural. So yeah, it's like one of the best things for you in so many ways. And I love that. Yeah, that's just one little aspect of apitherapy, and there's so much more to that.
Let us take a little break to honor the incredible power of gathering, of connecting. This conversation is really talking into this through the lens of beekeeping. What happens when we are connected to ourselves, and what happens when we are connected with like-minded humans? When we have the village around us, you have to remember in this busy life that it doesn't have to be that way. Yesterday there was a full moon eclipse, and a little ritual that you could do is to journal for yourself, to reflect by yourself, for yourself. What are you releasing? What are you letting go of? And what are you inviting into your life? What do you want more? What are you craving for? And with that, I want to personally invite you to my Root and Flow retreat in Tuscany, with yoga synergy, with creativity processes, with getting our hands oily and buttery after making our own natural body products with beeswax and with honey. And there are a few spots left. The dates are 2nd to 6th of October, Tuscany, in a beautiful place called Podere la Gualda Vecchia. If this is something for you, send me an email, find me on Instagram, and we'll take it from there. I just have my heart full with this feeling that it's so amazing to be able to create the space to land and be creative, and I would love for you to be in that space. What about bee venom?
Yeah. My relationship with bee venom totally changed when I started, it's a fine line between poison and medicine. So, this is like potent life energy. And this is something very ancient as well that they've used since Egyptian times for immortality. And even Hoshindu, this practice I got to receive in America, which is actually micro stinging with bee venom. That's amazing. It actually comes from Taoism as well. It has like roots. It's crazy. But people are using bee venom for autoimmune conditions like Lyme's disease, and one of the only things that's totally healing people back to life. Like, there's a protocol you can follow, and in 2.5 years, you can totally be Lyme's disease free from bee venom. But this is quite intensive, the amount you have to sting and the protocol, but it can kill breast cancer cells. Like, bee venom is amazing. And I've had quite a journey with it as well the last year or so, when I had someone come and volunteer for me, and then she became allergic to the bees, and I helped micro sting her over a period, and then she went on her own journey and did, other things as well as the venom, and kept micro stinging. And then she got blood tests, and she actually completely reversed her allergy from the venom. But to micro sting her, I had to sting myself first. So I started intentionally stinging myself with the venom to help her. And I've received quite a bit of bee venom just on my travels in America, I'm meeting these Hoshindu practitioners it's a Japanese art form of micro stinging that's really gentle and follows the meridians. Yeah, and it's helped me a lot, and feeling the power of that has been amazing. And it's also amazing for beauty. Like you can do micro needling with bee venom as well. Like it just kind of like wakes up the body to regenerate your own cells and heal yourself in like so many ways. It's really, really potent stuff. And again, because I see the hive as whole, there's different ways you can get bee venom, because I used to make a cream that had bee venom in it. And, no bees died from using that venom because I was using a machine. Well, I used to own this machine, but then I started ordering it from Croatia because my bees were too gentle, not defensive enough. And they would sting the glass, and the bees don't die only when they sting mammals. So they would sting the glass from this vibration, and then you could collect the venom off this glass. But you're upsetting a hive as a whole, because we see it as like a whole body or mammal. So you're stressing it, right? When you're individually using bee venom, you're taking a cell from the body, and like in summer, thousands of bees are born every day, thousands are dying every day. So I actually think, even though you're killing a bee, if you look at it in sort of a more holistic way, I actually think it's more ethical to be doing individual live bee venom, because renewing a few cells of a hive rather than stressing the organism as a whole,
The whole.
even though you're not killing bees. So it's a bit complex, but that's my viewpoint on it. And it's just like, again, it's a relationship as well, and it's a really, really potent medicine, the sting. And I was just traveling with a woman as well that has a really strong connection to it, who learned off a Mexican shaman. So there's different cultures and practices all around the world that have a connection to bee venom.
How do you micro dose?
Sting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How
so
does
it's
that
quite
work? How do
hard,
you?
and that's why to sting my friend, I was stinging myself first. It was pretty much like sharing needles, because I didn't have the skill or technique to micro sting her when she's allergic. I was too scared. So I was literally stinging myself first,
All
pulling
right.
out the stinger and stinging her when I did it. The Hoshindu practitioners, they get training, and they're a lot they become skilled to be able to micro sting, and pretty much they can just do the first one. It's like you have to do it very lightly, so you don't give them the full sting. And
But
then
but the bee dies anyway.
the bee dies,
All
but the
right.
difference is you're not giving a full dose of venom at
Yeah.
once. So
Okay.
you're using that same stinger to follow the meridians, and they do lots of taps. So it's a lot more like balanced all over, and it's not painful. So in my treatment with Lisa, for a whole treatment, she used 4 bees. When, with Lyme's disease, you're stinging up the spine 3 times a week, like multiple bees. It's quite a lot when you're using it for like for disease and healing and all of that kind of stuff. When with the micro stinging, it's like the Japanese always felt less is more. And so they developed a technique to be able to use the venom in a more controlled, balanced way, and using less. So you're still killing a bee. I mean, there are ways you can do it, allowing the bee to sting you, and it can actually like corkscrew, kind of like wind its way out. But that doesn't always happen, but it's possible. And it's quite painful to like stand there and let it sting you and like try to get itself out. So yeah, it's possible. But I think sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, you've got to like ask the bee and have this, and that's beautiful if that's like their thing. But I'm still like, you are killing the bee. Kind of like, I want to see it for what it is, have reverence, have connection. Like it's death and life and relationship. And I think it just is what it is. And, we've been doing it since ancient times.
You see this more as a ritual than just a consumerism. Yeah, we need bees. Bum, bum,
Yeah.
bum, bum. Okay, done. You see
Yeah.
the bee as, well, thank you for providing us with this
Yeah.
medicine.
And it's like a sacrament, like back in
Totally.
the days as well, they would be such a reverence and ceremony around like death, but also like knowing the power and the beauty that can come from that. And so I think it's just like, having more of a relationship with that. For example, like here in Morocco as well, they have the ceremony of sacrifice where they kill a goat, which is actually a really beautiful ceremony. I'd really like to watch that, and I'm happy for my daughter to watch, this than just buying meat in, a plastic packed thing. It's like having a relationship and connection with death and kind of owning that and yeah, and knowing it rather than like it's over here, I'm over here, and being a bit weird about it. Yeah.
Wow, that is there's so much knowledge out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see where this work of yours leads you into collecting different practices from the whole world and making sure
Yeah.
somehow that they live on. Don't lose that connection that
Absolutely, and I think it's kind of happening collectively anyway.
yeah.
Like, I can see, it kind of, like, coming up in different parts of the world more and more now, and it's actually really beautiful to see, and I think it's kind of like, um, kind of a sign as our consciousness as a collective and, um, we're kind of ready for the bee medicine, and I always thought quite literally, it's my purpose to bring the medicines of the hive to the people, and it is literally, but now I'm actually feeling more drawn to do it. I'm kind of more drawn to do it in other creative ways like performance. I want to tell the
Oh,
real story of the hive through literal kind of like honey performance and dance and theater, like all of that. So, yeah, there's so many like ways you can embody the bee and take it. And I'm kind of, yeah, ready for this and curious to see how this next chapter goes.
it feels you are in between lives, in between the chapters, right? You had your business, your products, your bees, and then they actually died and you traveled. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's like be careful what you wish for because I got everything that
Oh,
I wanted. I mean, I started the business like 7 years ago when Olive was born. It was really deep, big dreaming. Volunteered to Save the Bees Australia for many years. So it's been a really big journey, and I wanted to create a physical business with the literal hive medicines and amazing honeys and skin products and all of it natural. And I wanted to, live on a community and collaborate and be like this hive and just have like really strong sisterhood. And it all happened. And then I've realized I was prisoner to my own creation.
oh,
And it was really hard to be able to like, get out of that. But I have now, and it's kind of like I'm starting again from scratch in a way of restarting my business and all of that. But yeah, it's been such a beautiful, beautiful journey. And yeah, the bees have just taught me so much along the way. And it's nearly a blessing as well because I really see like the death and birth are so intertwined with the bees. And I know that it's okay, and I just have to let go of the attachment of like, these were my bees, these are my hives, because they're not. They're wild, and it's nearly a symbol of like what I'm standing for as well, that they all did die. And it's also been a blessing in a way because I've been able to travel and not be responsible
totally.
for them. And now I can really consciously, have a lot of thought into how I want to recreate everything coming home. So yeah, it's been really, really interesting.
It's beautiful that you touch upon this, death and rebirth, because this was, one of the points that I wanted to pick up with you. If the occasion came, and it's like through death, there is this process of grieving, of letting go, and really sometimes we're not really ready, but we have to be ready and like, okay. And as we trust this rebirth gently comes to us, and through then we get to accept what's going on. And now you're in the place where you're like, okay, I'm very curious, what's next? What am I going to create? And you have that lightness now and this background, incredible background that you have into your rebirth, into your new chapter. So you named dance and performances. What else? So what do you see in front of you? My God.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much because I also have in storage like the most amazing shop fit out for an apothecary. Like, I would really love to create a literal studio where you can come in and connect and get all of the physical apitherapy treatments, with breath work with the bees and honey massage and like uh, wax dipping. I used to do this, wax dip people's joints and stuff. So there's definitely a calling in me to create still products, a few simple products again, and to create a really amazing, unique studio. But yeah, and to have like less hives actually. not be responsible for so many and just support good bee tenders and do less rather than trying to like do it all. The other part of me wants to like move to Europe and live in the countryside and like just tend bees in like woven baskets and make clay pots and like go right back to basics and don't like do anything consumeristic and just like live from very little and just be like a cottage woman. That's like part of me. And the other part of me wants to get up on stage and pour honey all over myself and like dance and tell the story of the hive. It's like many parts of me. I don't know how I'm going to like integrate that all. It would be, yeah, even I'm interested to see how that goes.
Wow. So many things like the bees, right? You have so many small cells and so many pathways and so many things we want to do. Somehow it would always work out. But can you be like the cottage woman in Australia? Or do you feel it's
Um,
something more like Europe located?
I just feel like such a resonance there in Europe. I mean, I'm half Austrian as well. So I think I'll get there sometime, but I really need to
Ah,
set myself up a proper base in Australia first.
yeah.
Like, I still have my beautiful tiny house. So, yeah, at the moment, I'm thinking of buying land on the outskirts of Melbourne and moving the tiny house, but that will take me a little while to pull off. So I'm kind of in this in between state at the moment. Yeah. So we'll see how it happens. I definitely will be all of those things in Australia, I think. And yeah, just with grace, I want to see the opportunities that come up and what happens and where I feel called because I was definitely burnt out, trying to share the load with community and a business and all of that, but just ending up like because I know how to do it all and I've created it. I ended up kind of just like doing it all, raising a daughter while like building a house while doing all of these big things. And I completely burnt out. So I have to be careful coming home and just like less is more, kind of like how the Japanese developed their bee venom therapy. I don't want to do too much at once, but that's my problem as well because like my creation and I do the things I say as well. Yeah, I'm too ambitious for my own good, so I've just got to like slowly dip my toes back in Australia and see how I go without trying to take on too much at once.
I feel you. I totally feel this, having many ideas and somehow not wanting to give up any of the pieces. Like, no, I want to do it all. And you come to a point where you have reached like the maximum capacity and it becomes a burden, becomes a more something that is limiting you rather than something that enhances you, something that helps you to expand. And it takes that courage to actually say, all right, stop right there. I'm changing. My life is changing. My energy is changing. Do I still want all of these pieces or I can do some, cleaning and cleansing? So that's a
Yeah,
big part of the process.
absolutely. And a lot of the time I find it quite funny because humans call bees like busy bees, right? That they're always like working and doing. But we've just projected, qualities that we admire in humans upon the bees. Like if you actually look, sure, they look busy on the outside, pollinate, they're so graceful. If you look inside a hive, like actually just look at, they're chilling. They're wiggling their little, they're like sleeping. They're like, they're, they don't forage for the last week of their life. Like they're not that busy. They're just like gracefully doing what they love and following, so like the embodiment of the bee is really, I mean that quite literally in so many ways, not just with the products and the elements and all of that, but I just mean the spiritual teachings of the hive as well, with how they perceive time and the way that they really do work together. It's always all for the good of the hive. Like I'm now like taking a step back to really, my bee knowledge and journey is so deep and so big, but it's like actually the most growth is just in the actual embodiment of the hive, which is you can't always see on the outside. And I feel like that's a lot of what's been happening with this time away as well. It's given me perspective to come back to what actually the core of my soul's purpose means.
With so much laughter and love. You beautiful. What is the best way that people can learn more about your job and connect with you if they get the inspiration from this amazing talk?
Instagram's definitely where I'm most active. I'm Embody Bee.
Yeah.
I have a website as well, and I will start to drip feed some of my OG Embody Bee products again. Like the most popular one is Nectar of the Goddesses, which is, a blend of like royal jelly and propolis and a lot of the beautiful medicines of the hive together. So I'll be coming back. So look out for my products to be relaunched again, just a few. So yeah, you can find that on my website, embodybee.com. I also have a YouTube channel with a little bit of stuff on there.
Well, it is time for me to close up this beautiful conversation. Thank you so much to both of you for
Yeah, thanks for having me.
sharing the time and the knowledge and the smiles.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, and good luck with your next chapter, with the
Thank you.
unfolding. Thank you. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Synergy Podcast. I hope this conversation sparked something within you, a new way of thinking, feeling, or moving. If you love this episode, let me know. Share it, leave a review, or connect with me on Instagram at mielestrega. And if you're ready to go deeper, check out my yoga offerings, come to a yoga class at the studio, and check out my handmade natural body products at mielestrega.com. Remember, your body is yours, your pleasure is yours, and living pain-free is possible. Until next time, move with ease and live with joy.